Relax and listen to the voice. At this point, these SCPs need no further introduction. Let's get right into it. SCP-1121, the Skinning Disease. Euclid Class. Description: SCP-1121 is a previously unknown amoeboid protozoa with very specific mutagenic qualities triggered only by Staphylococcus epidermis, a normally benign bacterium present on human skin. If introduced to other organisms, SCP-1121 remains dormant. DNA extracted from samples of SCP-1121 share genes with several insect species such as Afrosimex constrictus, Grillotalpa brachyptera, and Doru aculeatum, while also containing several genes not currently found in known flora or fauna. SCP-1121 does not seem to procreate naturally and does not need fluids to survive. Once introduced to Staphylococcus epidermis, SCP-1121 mutates all instances of the bacteria into SCP-1121-1. This is classified as Staphylococcus epidermis excitiabilis before dying. At this point, a subject is considered infected and will start to show Stage 1 symptoms as detailed below. Note that, while Staphylococcus epidermis does not normally cause infection in healthy human beings, the SCP-1121-1 pathogen infects 100% of subjects exposed to it. SCP-1121-1 has proven resistant to all known antibiotics, and at this time, no known cure for infections with Staphylococcus epidermis excitiabilis exists. A subject infected with SCP-1121-1 goes through a set number of stages. Stage 1. 2 to 5 hours after initial infection, small white lesions appear on the skin. This does not differ from infection by Staphylococcus epidermis, making wrong diagnoses a distinct possibility. Stage 2. Approximately 24 hours after the onset of Stage 1, the lesions will gradually begin to disappear, the infection having spread to the lower layers of the patient's skin. SCP-1121-1 then consumes the subcutaneous tissue, transforming it into a highly viscous substance. This process is extremely painful. The patient's skin is at this point connected to underlying tissues only by the substance excreted by SCP-1121-1. In addition, subject skin turns pale and slouches in areas, mimicking the effects of massive sudden weight loss. Stage 3. Patients have been documented removing their skin from their body. Most patients use their own hands for skinning, though in some cases, patients resorted to using various tools, including knives, windshield scrapers, and in one case, a
redacted.
This process seems to be painless due to the events of Stage 2, and does not seem to be a conscious activity. When the anomalous substance underneath the skin is exposed to air, it gradually
information missing,
commonly found on insects. Victims rapidly become disoriented and invariably hostile to anyone not infected by SCP-1121-1 as the process of the skin removal progresses. In light of this, termination of all victims is necessary, preferably before the disease enters Stage 3. No occurrences of SCP-1121 have been observed outside of initial containment, but the bacterium replicates itself rapidly during Stages 1 and 2. Infection of new patients occurs primarily by skin-to-skin contact, though evidence exists of infection spreading in situations where no direct contact was observed, making Level A hazmat equipment a precautionary must when handling any samples of SCP-1121-1. Furthermore, SCP-11211 has been observed to remain active long after Stage 3 has concluded, with samples of skin showing active cultures of the mutated bacteria for up to
Classified.
years after initial infection. It is currently unknown during what period of time removed skin remains an infection hazard. Addendum 1121A-01 Recovery and Preliminary Containment Notes. SCP-1121 was discovered on a meteorite unearthed during an archaeological dig in
Redacted.
New Mexico in the year 19...
Information unavailable.
The archaeologist first exposed to the meteorite was infected with SCP-11211 and is at this point considered to be Patient 0. Within 2 days, the infection had spread from Patient 0 to the entire on-site research team and several citizens of
Redacted.
Initial containment was managed by the CDC, but after Patient 0 entered Stage 3 of the disease, operatives within that agency brought in the Foundation. The meteorite and Patient 0 were transferred to Biological Research Site 13, and all land in a 10-kilometer radius around the dig site was cleared using Mk-77 bombs. The only known colonies of SCP-1121 were recovered from the meteorite. Mass spectrometer analysis using rubidium-strontium dating of samples determined its age to be approximately 2,500,200,000 years. Addendum 1121A-2 Excerpts from the testing log 1121T. Test designation 1121T-01. Name, Personnel ID, Dr.
Redacted.
Test Subject, D-73345. Transcript, 2,
Redacted.
19,
Redacted.
2034. D-77345 was placed in an artificial coma, and SCP-11211 was introduced to his skin. 2,
Redacted.
19,
Redacted.
2317. Stage 1 symptoms set in, with lesions appearing to spread evenly across subject's body. Lesions seem to be radiating out from the left outer thigh, where SCP-11211 was applied to subject's skin. 3,
Redacted.
19,
Redacted.
2248. Subject still in coma. Lesions have started to disappear, and subject's skin has been observed to be undulating slightly. 4,
Redacted.
19,
Redacted.
317. Undulation seems to have stopped. Skin seems pale, but subject's vital signs are still good. Subject has been brought out of the artificial coma. Once D-73345 is lucid enough for conversation, Dr.
Information redacted.
initiates contact over the intercom. Doctor, D-77345, how are you feeling? D-77345, fine, I guess. I look pale. Subject grunts. Doctor, anything you'd like to share with us? Subject, not really. Look, Doc, how much longer am I going to be here? Doctor, just a little while longer, D-77345. We need to observe your behavior. Subject, my behavior? What the hell's wrong with my behavior? Doctor, nothing's wrong with your behavior. We just... Subject interrupts Doctor. You're goddamn right nothing's wrong with my behavior. Doctor, no need for hostility, D-73345. We're just here to learn from you. At this point, a research assistant chimes in. Doctor, I'm not sure I can stand this. Subject, you can't stand what, you...
Information unavailable.
Research assistant then leaves control room. Doctor, My assistant had to excuse himself. It seems he's disturbed by your activity since you woke up. Subject. What the
Redacted.
is wrong with you?
Redacted.
I've just been sitting here. Doctor. Yes, sitting there, tearing long strips of skin off of your left leg. Yes, I know. At this point, D73345 was observed without comment for approximately 1 hour and 32 minutes until he'd removed all skin from his body and had become highly erratic and volatile. The subject was then terminated and incinerated as per protocol. Test designation 1121T5. Name, personnel ID. Dr.
Redacted.
Test subject D14523, D4237, D72389, D92392, D24239, D22984, D49324, D3722, D2293, D14818, D88324, and D54491. Transcript 21,
Redacted.
19,
Redacted.
1513. Subjects were placed in an artificial coma, and SCP-11211 was introduced to their skin. 21,
Redacted.
19,
Redacted.
1658. Stage 1 symptoms begin to set in on D49234. Other subjects follow. 21,
Redacted.
19,
Redacted.
1744. The last subjects begin to show Stage 1 symptoms. 22,
Redacted.
19,
Redacted.
1856. The first subject enters Stage 2. Other subjects follow more rapidly than during Stage 1. 23,
Redacted.
19,
Redacted.
01. Last subject enters Stage 3. Subjects brought out of artificial coma and observed. 23,
Redacted.
19,
Redacted.
013. Subjects begin removing skin while talking amongst themselves. Conversation soon becomes increasingly erratic as subjects remove more skin from their bodies. No hostility towards other test subjects has been noted. 23,
Redacted.
19,
Redacted.
033-400. Subjects are now entirely skinless. The unknown substance hidden beneath their epidermis seems to be
Classified information.
milling around like,
Redacted.
we will need to study this behavior further. Subjects are then terminated and incinerated as per protocol. Addendum 1121A3. A note from a research assistant. You know, like when you were a kid, you'd dig up the ant's nest and step on the biggest one just to see them all run around like little maniacs? They remind me of that, the way they just stumbled around flailing. Addendum 1121A4. A note from Dr.
Redacted.
After 1121T5, it's been theorized that SCP-1121 could be a part of a terraforming experiment. If that is the case, one is left to wonder just what it was supposed to turn us into, if it's even us that they were after. Special Containment Procedures. Only 2 specimens have been collected of SCP-1121, both at initial containment. These are kept in one of Biological Research Site 13's refrigerated biohazard containment cells in a freezing medium composed of 12% dimethyl sulfoxide, 20% heat-inactivated calf serum, and a xenic medium at -70 degrees Celsius. Cultures of SCP-11211 are kept in a glycerol stock under identical temperatures in a separate, refrigerated biohazard containment cell. Due to the rarity of SCP-1121 samples, tests are to use SCP-11211 cultures instead. Testing is to be authorized and conducted by at least one Level 4 member of on-site research staff. All personnel not designated a test subject are to wear Level A hazmat suits with SCBA, self-contained breathing apparatus, before handling any cultures of SCP-11211. Failure to do so will result in immediate quarantine and, upon completion of all stages, incineration of the remains. Should infections with SCP-11211 be reported outside of Foundation control, a quarantine is to be instated within a 10-kilometer radius of the established epicenter. All victims not yet deceased are to be terminated, followed by controlled incineration of all bodies. Seemingly uninfected civilians and personnel within the quarantine zone will be detained and monitored. If they develop no symptoms after 24 hours, they are to be administered Class A amnestics and relocated. Any individuals that do develop symptoms within that time period are to be terminated and incinerated. A suitable cover story will then be circulated to the media. SCP-760, the Groomers. Object Class, Safe. Description: SCP-760 is a vaguely humanoid species of animal, only 3 of which have ever been obtained by the Foundation. The skeletal and muscular system of SCP-760 differ greatly in areas from those of humans. The most notable effects of these differences being legs that extrude perpendicular to the torso and an ape-like curvature of the spine that results in a preference to walk on all fours. Other notable differences include the addition of an extra joint on each finger of SCP-760 and an average of 150% of the joint degrees of freedom that are allowed for humans. This makes SCP-760 much more flexible than the average human, which aids in the specimens of SCP-760 during feeding. Where a face would be on a human, there is a mass of hair on SCP-760. This hair is shown to have some sort of sensory function that allows for sight in the dark. Underneath the hair, there are no eyes, nose, or mouth. However, the skin of the face is pulled taut as a part of a speaker-like vocal system. SCP-760 has muscle structures in the front of their head that they can use to vibrate the skin as if it were a drum head, producing a variable pitched whine. Further observation led to the discovery that this vocal structure is also capable of opening and serving as a mouth. Within this mouth is a tongue, approximately 40 centimeters in length, with a soft but coarse texture. The epidermis of SCP-760 is shown to react to light in a way that makes them invisible. This is done via a complex system of reflective
Information unavailable.
Roughly 78% of SCP-760's skin. The hair on SCP-760's head disappears as well. Biological analysis shows the hair to be similar in composition to a polar bear's. As light dims, however, this side effect fades, and in very dim light, it is possible to see SCP-760 completely. Removal of the skin also hinders this effect, and it appears to do so on more areas of SCP-760 than just where the skin was removed, suggesting that the function of SCP-760's invisibility on any part of its body requires that same function on all surrounding parts. It is also worth noting that SCP-760 appears agitated when subjected to light for longer than what would be normal sunlight hours near latitude
Redacted.
north or
Redacted.
south. Instances of SCP-760 are very docile under normal circumstances. They exhibit behavior and tendencies similar to canines or primates, thus making understanding what they are thinking relatively easy. They are generally curious creatures. Any object that is placed in the containment area is almost sure to be examined thoroughly by them. They seem to enjoy toying with new things, particularly taking objects apart and examining their pieces. They also seem to enjoy attempting to figure out how things work, and as long as they are attempting to learn about something, they are completely content to stay in the containment area. Contributions of objects by personnel have served as more than enough to keep this want for new objects appeased. It is, generally speaking, entirely safe to enter the containment area, and specimens of SCP-760 seem to either enjoy or be indifferent to the presence of people. They have shown behaviors towards humans that are almost childlike in nature and almost always benevolent. Instances of SCP-760 appear to be particularly interested in sleeping humans. In experiments performed investigating this, it was discovered that specimens of SCP-760 feed on human secretions and dead matter. When presented with a sleeping human, SCP-760 will proceed to carefully position itself over the subject, onto their chest if the subject is sleeping on their back, and begin vocalizing at approximately 20 decibels for a period of
Redacted. Classified.
minutes. This vocalization appears to promote slow-wave sleep in
Classified.
percentage of subjects, greatly reducing the chance of the subject awakening. The exact mechanism responsible for this effect is unknown, but it is thought to involve,
Classified information.
in the remaining
Classified.
percentage, the subject is largely unaffected by the vocalization and may regain some level of consciousness. Several subjects who have reported this experience have likened it to sleep paralysis, stating that they awoke to find themselves aware of an inhuman presence in the room but unable to move. After this period, SCP-760 will use its tongue to consume any easily accessible secretions present on the subject, including ocular discharge, hair oils, dead skin cells, pimples, and
Redacted.
this process has been observed to be largely harmless to the subject. However, experimental observation indicates that if the subject shifts during sleep or some external event occurs, SCP-760 may become startled and exert additional force on the subject, in several cases causing sore areas and slight bruising. Addendum 76001. Research into weaponizing SCP-760's invisibility is pending approval. Addendum 76002. On
Classified.
2000,
Redacted.
86 days after the initial discovery of SCP-760, another specimen of SCP-760 was obtained, revealing it to be a member of a species rather than an independent creature. Specimen previously in possession reclassified as SCP-76001, and newly obtained specimen was classified as SCP-76002. Research into the social interactions between the two began immediately following SCP-76002's arrival at Sector 5. Addendum 76003. SCP-7601 and 02 were observed taking part in what appears to be some sort of mating ritual, which involved
Information redacted.
consistently screaming at each other and
Redacted.
resulted in the immediate medical treatment of SCP-760-01, and the knowledge that specimens of SCP-760 are hermaphroditic. Addendum 760-04 SCP-760-02 gave birth. Subject titled SCP-760-03. Incident Report 760-01-I. On
Redacted.
2000
Redacted.
at approximately 2148, one of the guards posted to contain SCP-760-01 fell asleep on his shift. SCP-760-01 was somehow able to see this, suggesting that the hairs on its face allow it to sense through walls. It then proceeded to its containment door and partially disassembled it from the inside, a process taking roughly
Information missing.
hours, and proceeded to feed on the guard as he slept. The other guard was unaware of this due to SCP-760-01's active camouflage in the hallway lights, but proceeded to coax it back into its containment area the moment he realized what was happening. Special Containment Procedures. Each specimen of SCP-760 is to be kept in an individual containment area. The locks on the doors to these containment areas are to be changed every month. Feedings composed of
Redacted.
grams of a nutrient-rich paste are to be issued once a day. Specimens are only to be introduced to each other in experiments meant to observe social interactions and subsequent psychological events between specimens. At least 2 armed guards are to be posted outside of each containment area at any time. Each containment area is to be lit with no more than one 40-watt light bulb and equipped with low-light surveillance cameras. In the event of an equipment malfunction, equipment should be manually replaced as soon as possible, as instances of SCP-760 have a tendency to disassemble maintenance equipment. Personnel are allowed to give specimens of SCP-760 items that they no longer want or need, given that the objects do not violate current Foundation regulations and that they are approved by the overseeing researcher. Items requested for donation to SCP-760 include, but are not limited to, car keys, access denied; a broken clock, access approved; a Rubik's Cube toy, access approved; ordinary everyday trash, access denied; a broken Foundation computer, access approved, provided that the hard drive of the computer has been removed. SCP-1003, the Tapeworm Child. Object Class: Keter. Description: SCP-1003-1 is an adult tapeworm of the species Echinococcus granulosus, known for causing high-dated disease. Like others of its species, SCP-1003-1 inhabits the small intestines of carnivores, typically canids, where it produces eggs that are then passed in the host's feces. The eggs can survive up to
Redacted.
years in the outside environment. When the eggs enter the gastrointestinal tract of a human subject, hereby designated the intermediate host, via consumption of contaminated food, they hatch into larvae, which burrow into the host's tissues. It is at this stage that SCP-1003's anomalous properties begin to manifest. Instead of developing into cysts, the larvae develop into creatures which resemble human embryos, hereby designated SCP-1003-2. The vast majority of SCP-1003-2 specimens die before they have a chance to develop. Those that survive are usually those that are embedded in nutrient-rich tissues, such as hepatic tissue. As they develop, They absorb nutrients from the surrounding tissue, which often causes problems for the intermediate host. SCP-1003-2's development mostly follows the pattern of normal human prenatal development, but at a faster rate. By 8 weeks, it is as mature as a 3-week-old neonate, although it is similar in size to an 8-week-old embryo, approximately 13 to 16 centimeters in length. Once it has reached this stage, it will actively consume the intermediate hosts from within, using sharp, hooked teeth. SCP-1003-2 growth is accelerated to an even greater extent as it begins doing this. By the time it has fully consumed the intermediate host, usually after roughly
Information unavailable.
it will have developed into a child. The physical age of the child typically ranges from 10 months to 11 years, depending on the mass of the intermediate host, though in extreme cases where the intermediate host is morbidly obese, it can be as high as 13 to 15 years. Once SCP-1003-2 is finished, it will lose its hooked teeth, along with its cannibalistic tendencies. From where on, it will be functionally indistinguishable from a human in every respect, with no known knowledge or memory of having been a parasite. It will even possess learned skills, language for example, that would be expected of a child its apparent age, despite there being no way that it could have learned those skills. Instances of SCP-1003-2 are usually taken into orphanages and sometimes adopted by foster parents. Their only anomalous properties at this stage are that their DNA is somehow still identical to that of Echinococcus granulosus, and that their bodily fluids, including sweat and saliva, contain tapeworm protoscolex, which infect carnivores and develop into SCP-1003-1, thus continuing the cycle. Addendum. Testing of SCP-1003 with animals such as cattle and sheep, which are common intermediate hosts of Echinococcus granulosus, have found that its anomalous properties only manifest in humans, and in all other cases its life cycle is normal and causes hydatid disease in the intermediate host. Special Containment Procedures. The Foundation currently has 10 instances of SCP-1003-2, designated SCP-1003-2A through K, in its possession, all of which are held in separate, heavily guarded, high-security cells at Bioresearch Area 13. All personnel at Bioresearch Area 13 are to undergo regular compulsory testing for signs of SCP-1003 infection. Personnel wishing to access SCP-1003-2A through K may only do so for the express purpose of research. They must have Level 4 security clearance and must have written permission from O5
Redacted.
beforehand. They are to wear biohazard suits when entering SCP-1003-2A through K's cells and go through an intensive disinfection process afterwards. No animals of the order Carnivora are to be allowed at Bioresearch Area 13 under any circumstances. SCP-1129 Hyper-arousal response. Object Class Euclid. Description: SCP-1129 is a large object of apparently biological origin. Its composition is largely unknown, as it seems to flow past any and all objects that approach it, temporarily breaking apart and changing its own dimensions as needed. Due to this, only one sample has ever been obtained, which showed the presence of several amino acids and hormone analogs consistent with terrestrial life, but no DNA samples were detected. Based on longitudinal ultrasound recordings it appears that SCP-1129 is dimensionally fractal in nature, with a partial existence in a theoretical 3.333rd spatial dimension. Based on behavior, it is presumed that SCP-1129 is sentient, although this is unconfirmed. When any sentient being makes visual contact with SCP-1129, they will immediately enter Stage 1, which is characterized by an extremely heightened flight reflex. They will attempt to flee from SCP-1129 by any means possible, ignoring obstacles and personal injury. Human subjects have later described this as being overcome with an intense fear and unthinking hysteria. Stage 1 symptoms will increase in intensity so long as the subject remains within 23.3 meters of SCP-1129 or remains in direct line of sight of SCP-1129. Stage 1 symptoms will persist for several hours after the affected being has left the immediate range of effect of SCP-1129. If the affected subject is unable to leave the range of effect, they will exhibit increasingly frantic behaviors until finally expiring. Post-mortem examinations reveal that the cause of death is typically cardiac arrest or the equivalent, consistent with a prolonged heightened state of fear and stress. Once a subject has recovered from Stage 1 symptoms, they will immediately proceed to Stage 2. Stage 2 is characterized by heightened aggression and hostility towards SCP-1129. Human subjects invariably describe SCP-1129 as wrong, not the right kind of real, not fitting here, etc., as well as describing SCP-1129 as feeling incredibly dangerous. They will express a strong desire to destroy it immediately by any means possible. If the animal subject to Stage 2 symptoms is not able to convince others to assist them in destroying SCP-1129, they will attempt to do so on their own, up to and including breaching containment on SCP-1129 or other SCP items believed to possibly be useful in the destruction of SCP-1129. If multiple individuals are experiencing Stage 2 symptoms, they will work together in a destruction attempt. Subjects do not display any change in intelligence, skills, or ability to communicate. However, in cross-species cooperation is usually minimized. No other change in behavior or motivation is noted, and subjects experiencing Stage 2 symptoms will pause in order to eat or sleep, while they return to their destruction attempts as soon as feasible. However, upon seeing SCP-1129, subjects will promptly return to Stage 1 with no apparent memory of having experienced it before, beginning the cycle again. This cycle will continue unabated until the subject has either died or been administered amnestics. In approximately 1.7% of cases, a subject will enter Stage 3 instead, which is characterized by all voluntary muscles freezing in place. This muscle locking persists despite all treatment, including removal from SCP-1129's range of effect, administration of muscle relaxers, administration of amnestics, and medical destruction of the motor nerves controlling them. To date, the most control of voluntary muscles that has ever been regained was in 3 individuals who regained control of the eyelids, allowing voluntary blinking and partial control of the vocal cords. In these cases, amnestics were successful in eradicating the Stage 1 and Stage 2 symptoms. Video feeds and photographs of SCP-1129 produce an identical effect, though artist renditions have no effect. Despite this profound observational cognitohazard effect, SCP-1129 seems to be completely harmless otherwise. Update. It has now been determined that transition into Stage 2 may be caused by any significant knowledge of the nature of SCP-1129's effects. SCP-1129 is now considered a Grade 3 info hazard and has been upgraded to Euclid. See Addendum. Addendum. On April
Redacted.
19,
Redacted.
researchers assigned to SCP-1129 began to share the consensus that SCP-1129 was incredibly dangerous and submitted multiple requests for its decommissioning, which were all denied. A new team of researchers were assigned, but within 30 days they exhibited the same opinions as the previous team. Subsequent research teams have displayed the same effects, despite updated containment procedures. Teams of researchers are now to be cycled on a bi-weekly basis, as that seems to slow the onset of the info hazard aspect of SCP-1129's effects. Efforts are currently underway to identify and locate all personnel Foundation-wide who may have been exposed to information regarding SCP-1129 directly or second-hand, with administration of amnestics and memory restructuring performed as appropriate. As of the date of this report,
Information missing.
personnel have been identified and successfully treated. Footnotes 1 and 2. 1. This effect is most pronounced in mammals, but has been observed in all animal life, including birds, fish, snails, and insects. Certain sentient anomalies, however, are not affected. 2. The exact length of time varies considerably from individual to individual, with an average of 4 hours. Special Containment Procedures. SCP-1129 is to be contained in a 3 meter by 3 meter by 3 meter chamber in the high security wing of Site-83. Due to the nature of SCP-1129, no direct or first-degree indirect viewing methods, such as observation windows or cameras, are allowed within the containment chamber, except as authorized by a Level 4 or higher researcher. Visual contact with SCP-1129, whether direct, indirect, or recorded, is not allowed except under strictly controlled experimental conditions. SCP-1129's continued presence and status is monitored by ultrasound, as the image produced does not cause the effects typical of observing SCP-1129. Knowledge of SCP-1129's effects is non-essential for any personnel with less than Level 4 security clearance. Personnel assigned to the research, containment, security, or other support teams associated with SCP-1129 are to be sequestered from the other personnel at Site-83 until such time as they have been removed from the assignment and have completed the debriefing and clearance procedures. If any personnel at Site-83, whether assigned to SCP-1129 or not, begin to exhibit the Stage 1 or Stage 2 symptoms described previously, they are to be administered Class B amnestics immediately and must receive a psychological examination to determine the severity of after effects, with further psychological treatment made available if necessary. If a member of assigned personnel is deemed unnecessary to the continued containment of SCP-1129, they may be transferred to another project, so long as they had no direct exposure to SCP-1129. Update. Prior to transfer, all personnel who have been assigned to SCP-1129 must successfully complete a memory restructuring following treatment with Class A amnestics. At that point, they must complete a minimum 2-week quarantine period to be certain that they do not manifest Stage 1 or Stage 2 symptoms. SCP-1765 Sisters. Object Class Keter. Description: SCP-1765 is the collective designation for a group of 3 semi-corporeal entities, typically manifesting as vaguely humanoid, off-white silhouettes. Instances of SCP-1765 display a capacity to willfully weaken the structure of reality in their immediate presence, allowing them a limited but potent control over temporal and physical distortions within a substantial range. Instances of SCP-1765 are capable of speech, speaking in 3 differently toned voices described by listeners as feminine, and seem to possess individual and consistent personalities. SCP-1765 was first introduced to Area 37 following a successful raid by Foundation forces on a Serpent's Hand cell located in the nearby city of...
Information unavailable.
Several suspected anomalous artifacts, as well as 15 captured Serpent's Hand operatives, were retrieved and brought back to Area 37, an isolated facility specializing in the initial storage of such items. During preliminary examination of 3 of the retrieved artifacts, a small wooden loom, an enamel needle, and a glass eye, all 3 instances of SCP-1765, henceforth SCP-17651, SCP-17652, and SCP-17653, appeared and addressed the attendant personnel. Researcher:
Classified information.
The following conversation was recorded by the testing chamber's monitoring system. Begin log. SCP-17651. Greetings, esteemed members of the Foundation. We come to you with auspicious news. SCP-17652. Aye, you will be right pleased you will. SCP-17653. Hello. Researcher:
Classified.
What the hell? SCP-17651. Pardon, sir. I will be with you in a moment. Speaking to SCP-17652. Sisters, I thought we have agreed to let me do the introductions. You are embarrassing us. SCP-17652 with laughter states, Oh, whoops. Go on, we'll be quiet. SCP-17653. Apologies. SCP-17651. Yes, as I was saying, greetings. We are pleased to finally be able to make your acquaintance, for we have observed your organization for quite some time. Indeed, we have observed a great many, and out of them all, you stood out like a shining beacon of progress in a dark sea. Well done. SCP-17652. Oh, we're so very proud. SCP-17653. Congratulations. Researcher:
Classified.
Would someone get security? Researcher
Classified.
then grasps his tongue, which becomes visibly blackened and withered. SCP-17651. I told you, sir. I will be with you in a moment. Where was I? Oh, right. All this considered, we have decided that you, and no other, are worthy of receiving our assistance. It is an honor most rare, we assure you. SCP-17652. Like a bloody steak it is. That's how rare. SCP-17653. Tartar. At this point, Researcher
Classified.
attempts to speak again, then falls to the floor. His tongue then appears to crumble to dust as he loses consciousness. SCP-17651. Why must people always be silly? We shall have to fix that later. I keep losing my train of thought. It's most infuriating. SCP-17652. Our help. Severity. SCP-17653. Assistance. SCP-17651. Ah, thank you. Yes, our help. Seeing how meticulously you kept to the scientific method, we venture that we could be of most use to you if we do the same ourselves. Our abilities in that field are substantial, after all. Yes, to assist you, we will conduct several useful experiments on your behalf and deliver you the data. We believe this is the beginning of a wonderful partnership. SCP-17652. I think the assistant, he's out cold, love. SCP-17653. Unwell. SCP-17651. Oh, never mind him. They record everything. It's why we chose them, isn't it? SCP-17652. Aye, that's so. SCP-17653. Yes. SCP-17651. So, to those who are listening, we will begin our experiments immediately, since there is hardly any point in dilly-dallying. Now, we realize that they may seem a bit harsh, but trust us, we know what is best for you. SCP-17652, while laughing, states, "Sisters know best." SCP-17653 closes the conversation by replying, "Always." Following this conversation, all three instances of SCP-1765 began to move rapidly throughout Area 37. As SCP-1765 continued circling Area 37, several events were noticed which have been associated with reality-bending phenomena. SCP-1765 eventually ceased this pattern, presumably because Area 37 had become unstable enough to suit the parameters of their planned experimentation. At the conclusion of this process, security footage revealed that Area 37 was divided into 4 distinct sections, and Area 37's personnel divided between them, according to SCP-1765's location at the time of the event, as detailed below. Section A. Previously Area 37's mess hall, storekeeping, and dormitories. The smallest of the sections, Section A was the least changed by SCP-1765. Notable additions are 2 large brass vats located at the east corner of the mess hall, a monitoring station connected to other sections of Area 37, replacing storekeeping, and a large marble sign above the entrance to the dormitories which reads, "Control Group." Personnel belonging to the control group are not subjected to the experimentation taking place in other sections of Area 37. Once every 5 to 7 hours, the control group is visited by 1 instance of SCP-1765. During said visitation, food and water are dispensed from the brass vats, and the visiting instance typically addresses the control group, often encouraging them to use the monitoring station to observe any ongoing experiments. Section B. Previously Area 37's outer grounds and sports facilities. Section B is the fulcrum of a localized spatial-temporal abnormality. Because of this, its size, climate, atmospheric composition, and pressure and temporal flow are all variable, and are seemingly controlled by the will of SCP-17651, the entity typically overseeing experimentation in Section B. According to SCP-17651, experimentation in Section B is meant to delve into the effects of repetitive action performed under unusual conditions on the human psyche. Section C. Previously Area 37's main office complex. Section C exhibits similar anomalous properties to Section B, though it is associated with SCP-17652 rather than SCP-17651. Observation: as well as limited input from SCP-17652, indicates that experiments taking place in Section C tend to focus on group dynamics and interpersonal relations during extreme conditions. On average, the physical alterations to Section C during experimentation are more radical than those observed in Section B, while temporal alterations are significantly less so. Section D. Previously Area 37's high-risk containment area. Section D is currently the least understood segment of the altered Area 37 complex. Physically, it remains virtually unchanged from its state prior to its initial infestation by SCP-1765. Temporally, however, it appears to be entirely disconnected from the baseline stream of events, existing as an isolated bubble from events occurring outside of it. The temporal reality of Section D, as well as any experimentation taking place within it, are associated with SCP-17653. Due to SCP-17653's terse speech patterns and the general obscurity of the experiments in which it conducts, little is currently understood about the nature of experimentation taking place within Section D. Regardless of the section an experiment takes place in, SCP-1765 will seek to provide the Foundation with high-quality video and audio feeds that document it. This data is transferred to the nearest compatible Foundation server through currently unknown means. Footage will also often contain recorded notes by the supervising instance of SCP-1765. Addendum 1765-A. The following is a description of notable experiments performed by instances of SCP-1765. Section B. State of Section. For this experiment, Section B mostly retained its original form, other than the occasional structural shifts caused by reconstitution events as a result of the experiment. Personnel involved: Researcher
Redacted.
Agent
Redacted.
Sanitation Engineer
Redacted.
Experiment. Test subjects are brought into Area 37 Sports Center from an unknown location and are each given a wrench, a ruler, a brown paper pad, and a ballpoint pen. Subjects are then instructed by SCP-17651 to closely examine the sports center's plumbing system and to measure the exact length of each pipe and the angle in which it is connected to other pipes. This process takes between 10 and 12 hours due to the size of the sports center. Before it can be completed, however, Section B begins a reconstitution event, causing the plumbing system to be completely rearranged and rendering all work previously done moot. Test subjects are then instructed to begin again. This process repeats itself 459 times before the experiment concludes. Notes from SCP-17651. Following yesterday's somewhat disappointing expedition to Olympus Mons, but were the hosts rude. I have decided to attempt something less taxing on my test subjects, which are thus far proving to be both physically unimpressive and morally lacking. This simple examination of repeating sensory input and the manner in which it can be conducted to the other primal reactions to the point of overload should prove both useful to you and within my test subjects' rather limited capability. Finally, a proof that even if we try to learn from experience, that attempt is ultimately pointless, since once life passes you by, you'll just have to learn everything all over again. That's useful knowledge, children. I do hope that you are paying attention. Section C. State of Section. For this experiment, Section C took the appearance of a football stadium, with test subjects appearing around the 50-yard line. Notably, the goalposts have been removed and replaced with concrete bunkers. Personnel involved: The former members of Mobile Task Force Iota-6, otherwise known as Canvas Cats, as well as 10 of the 15 captive Serpent's Hand operatives. Experiment. The experiment took place in 2 phases. On the first phase, test subjects were divided into 2 teams, both consisting of a mix of MTF personnel and Serpent's Hand operatives. Both groups were then instructed by SCP-17652 to head to the bunkers located at the ends of the field. While running to these positions, several hooded figures appeared on the stadium's bleachers and began bombarding the test subjects with fast-moving, fiery projectiles. Additionally, 3 meters tall curved platforms began rising from the ground, requiring test subjects to exercise teamwork in order to bypass them. Due to the mixed composition of the team's test subjects, they were unable to overcome the platforms in time, and both teams were incinerated by the projectiles before reaching the bunkers. 30 seconds following this, the second phase of the experiment began, with the same group of test subjects again appearing near the 50-yard line unharmed. Subjects were again divided into 2 groups, one consisting only of MTF personnel, and the other of Serpent's Hand operatives. Test subjects were again instructed to reach the bunkers. Test proceeded as previously recorded, with both teams now able to surpass the raised platforms and reach the bunkers. At this moment, however, the doors to the bunkers closed shut, and 2 previously unseen pairs of sizable metal hammers descended from an unknown origin spot, crushing both teams to death. Notes from SCP-17652. I saw the kiddies were having a bad time with that double date thing we did, so I thought to myself, smile, kiddies today don't go for romance no more. It's too slow for them. They want excitement and sweat and explosions and sports. So I called a few old friends of mine, and they were happy to help. Weren't they just? What was the name of that tall one with the robes? Madam? Maven? Or was it John? Bah, I can't remember, but I know he just loves the football. We sure had a grand old time, even with the burning and the crushing and all. Oh, I think I'm forgetting something. Oh, the test. This was a test. Yeah. See, it goes to show you that no matter who you're with, you'll eventually get crushed by huge metal hammers smashing down from the sky. No, that can't be right. Ah, I got it. It doesn't matter how much you prepare and who's with you. Sooner or later, fate's going to catch up with you. Yes, this I like. This sounds just peachy. A lesson to be learned, my lads. A lesson to be learned. Section D. State of Section. Physically, Section D remained unchanged from its original state. Personnel involved. Site Director.
Redacted.
Experiment. Site Director
Classified.
enters Area 37's main containment vault. At the center of the vault, a table, likely taken from the mess hall, has been placed. On the table are 2 1-liter vats of
Information unavailable.
brand ice cream, one pistachio-flavored, the other passion-fruit-flavored. Site Director
Classified.
is instructed by SCP-17653 to choose. Site Director
Classified.
then chooses the pistachio-flavored ice cream and leaves the room. At this point, the footage momentarily blurs, and Site Director
Classified.
returns to the room, in which the unchosen vat of ice cream was replaced by a different one, this one chocolate-flavored. He is again instructed to choose, this time picking the chocolate-flavored ice cream. The process repeats itself, with each unpicked vat replaced by one of a different flavor. At the time of the writing of this document, the Foundation has received over 10,000 hours of footage from this experiment, with analysis identifying over 200,000 different flavors of ice cream, including Meerkat Marshmallow Madness, Tranquility, That Shoe That You Always Liked, God's Wrath, and
Information redacted.
Flavor. All evidence suggests that this experiment is still ongoing. Notes from SCP-17653. This one-word note is found at the beginning of the 1356th hour of footage. Delicious. Special Containment Procedures. SCP-1765's activity is currently limited to the confines of Area 37, which is considered its effective containment zone. Due to SCP-1765's complete infestation of Area 37, it is to be considered a Type 4 corporeal unstable territory, and all Foundation personnel inside are to be considered effectively lost. A defensive perimeter has been established around Area 37 according to standard Telemachus protocol. Attempts to breach Area 37's complex have all ended with the loss of all involved Mobile Task Force personnel, and so have been discontinued until further notice. In the event that the activity of SCP-1765 begins to spread, the on-site nuclear devices stored in Area 37 may be activated with the authorization of O5 Command. Due to the large volume of data produced by the activity of SCP-1765, a designated server farm has been constructed to contain it. Said server farm is to be kept isolated from all other Foundation networks. SCP-1988 Respiration. Object Class Euclid. Description: SCP-1988 is a communicable infection of bioarchitectural nature that affects houses built before 1961. Update: 1971. It is largely geographically confined to Chicago, Illinois, and its suburbs, but outbreaks have been reported in Dover, Delaware, and Portland, Maine. It is spread by relocation from an infected house to an uninfected house by the house's occupants. Whether or not the occupants themselves are the causative factor is not possible to determine. SCP-1988 affects a house in 3 stages. Stage 1 typically begins within 120 days of a house being occupied. In Stage 1, the house acquires noticeable drafts or cold spots. Doors and windows in general may become difficult to open or close, and they may occasionally open and close by themselves. Metal doors and windows begin to cyclically heat up and cool down. Wooden doors and windows alternate between decreasing and increasing in size. This would normally occur on a seasonal scale with annually changing temperatures and pressure. However, each cycle takes place in a matter of hours. Eventually, the cycles of the doors and windows synchronize across the whole house, and this leads to Stage 2 infection. In Stage 2, electrical appliances and plumbing begin to malfunction. Short circuits and burnt fuses are common. Heat transfer appliances, such as refrigerators and ovens, will begin to reverse or otherwise change the direction in which they transfer heat. Drains and faucets may become clogged with no discernible physical explanation. At this stage, the occupants of the house will definitely become aware of the house's abnormal behavior. In virtually all cases, they will decide to relocate to another residence in one of the other 2 affected cities. The relocation of the occupants leads to Stage 3. In Stage 3, the insulation, wiring, and plumbing of the house are gradually transfigured by an unidentified process of structural decay into a highly complex system of living, functional, biological organs resembling the lungs, bronchial tubes, and alveoli of various mammalian species. Faucets, drains, and electrical outlets become trachea-like organs to interface with the house's rooms. Electrical devices that are plugged into outlets are ejected in the process. Although the organs are not visible without opening the walls, the house now demonstrably breathes, increasing and decreasing in size by roughly 5 centimeters per cycle. The interior of the house fills with carbon dioxide periodically, which is then released through the autonomously operative windows and doors and replaced with oxygen from outside. This leads to a buildup of greenhouse gases, which in turn spurs the rapid growth of additional plant life. However, the dramatic rate of increase in plant life surrounding infected houses does not appear to be fully explained by the rate of carbon dioxide production. The progression of SCP-1988 symptoms has been found to be somewhat dependent on the occupant's knowledge of the house's abnormal behavior. If an occupant is unaware or unable to remember that there is anything out of the ordinary, the symptoms will not move past stage 2, and with time, they will regress and cease. This was discovered when an elderly man with Alzheimer's syndrome returned to his infected house in Chicago after initially leaving to relocate to Dover. Symptoms of SCP-1988 infection had been completely eradicated. Initial point of infection was traced to a house in Park Ridge, Illinois, which happened to be the childhood home of
Information unavailable.
But no connection has been established. Neither the causative factor behind SCP-1988 nor the reason why only Chicago, Dover, and Portland area are affected is yet known. Addendum. On
Classified.
2000,
Redacted.
roughly 10 years after initial documentation of SCP-1988, a change in the parameters of the anomaly was noted. SCP-1988 now affects not only houses built before 1961, but houses built in the 10 years after such date as well. Footnotes. Found to correspond to any mammalian species that has lived in the house prior to the onset of Stage 3. Special Containment Procedures. As SCP-1988 is spread by residents' relocation, agents embedded in real estate firms in Chicago, Illinois, Dover, Delaware, and Portland, Maine, are to artificially alter the market such that it becomes an unfavorable decision to relocate out of the city. A budget is to be allocated for the purpose of advertising a telephone hotline in these cities for civilians to report faulty hardware, appliances, and installations in their houses. In addition, satellites are to monitor these cities for abnormal increases in carbon dioxide emissions. When an infected house is discovered, the occupants are to be relocated to a new house that was constructed after 1971. Occupants are to be given vouchers on newly manufactured, energy-efficient appliances under the artifice of a government program. The old property is then to be claimed and redeveloped for civilian use. No part of the redeveloped property is to have been constructed before 1971. And there we have it, Volume 2 on SCPs. We had such a good response to the first volume, we figured we'd do it again. Thank you all for tuning in, thank you all for paying attention, and thank you all for spending your time with us. Until next time, sleep Dreams.